So Steam is by far one of, if not the most popular game distribution platform on PC, and for good reason. There are a lot of reasons that generally everyone loves Steam and despises Origin or the EA app or whatever they're calling it these days, and don't even get me started on the myriad of others. Steam undeniably has a good amount of perks, the biggest being Steam sales, one-click installs for mods via the Steam Workshop, cloud saves, and last but definitely not least, the absurd amount of titles from the most popular AAA games to, let's say, some more obscure indie games you wouldn't want your mom or wife to walk in while you're playing them. With this, before I go further, hit that like button, and I just want to emphasize I'm not saying Steam all in all is a bad platform. I'm not saying that I hate or refuse to use it, but I am saying that we as consumers should start moving away from it as a platform for the following reasons. Let's get into it. As PC gaming has grown throughout the years and digital distribution has become the norm with things like Game Pass, Steam, the Xbox Store, whatever, something that has to be spoken about now more than ever is who actually owns your games. You certainly don't. We've seen time and time again now publishers and distribution platforms alike remove games from players' libraries, usually for no good reason. Take this post from just a couple of months ago by an EA community manager, in which he explains why games are being removed from players' libraries. Reasons include, but are specified to be not limited to, discontinued online services, more on that in a minute, fraudulent activities, expiration of an EA Play membership, and more. Now, that's not me saying and more, that's what the actual post says, which means that there are literally unspecified and vague reasons as to why EA can just remove your games from your library. Let's unpack the rest of that. Discontinued online services. We recently saw this with a 2014 Ubisoft game called The Crew, a game that had a single-player mode but required an online connection to play it. Ubisoft removed the game that, yes, while it could be played in single player, it was still removed from people's libraries, all because the servers were shut down. So instead of doing the pro-consumer thing and releasing a patch that would remove the online requirement, Ubisoft decided to just take the game away from people, years after they bought it. But this isn't just a Ubisoft and EA exclusive issue here. Every time Xbox Live goes down, players have a hard time accessing their games, even single-player ones, because Microsoft is so scared of Patchy the Pirate that they basically force online DRM in one way or another. This is to say that companies, especially lately, like to make sure that you have to authenticate your right to play a game every so often via the internet. If you can't or don't want to do that for whatever reason, you can't play the game that you paid for. Steam is, as of recent years, unfortunately no exception to this issue. While it does seem far less predatory than other platforms, it's starting to follow suit. More and more, we're seeing games launch with third-party DRM such as Denuvo, which has been proven not only to have performance impacts on your game, but also requires you to be connected to the internet at least semi-often, placing an online activation token on your device that is set to expire after a period of time, which means that you must reconnect to the internet to verify that you still have the right to play the game. If you lose internet for an extended period of time or can no longer afford it for some reason, too bad, these companies don't care. To Steam's credit, they have gone through effort to advise consumers when third-party DRM is incorporated. However, while it's certainly a good thing that Steam does notify us of said third-party DRM, it doesn't negate the fact that it's there in the first place. While I understand the need for some kind of anti-piracy measures, I'm tired of companies treating me like a criminal and forcing me to put on a virtual ankle bracelet every time I try to play a game. This is part of the problem with digital distribution and DRM as a whole. Even just buying games, you aren't actually buying the game, but a license to use the software that can be revoked for any reason at any time. Many EULAs, if you actually read them, spell that out quite clearly. While the concept of DRM has been around for a while, the difference between now and yesteryear is in the past you had physical discs with CD keys which could usually be used as many times as needed, until EA decided to make them limited use, which was a controversy in and of itself. In modern day with digital distribution, you can install a game as much as you want for the most part, although in some cases that's changing, but if the platform or publisher doesn't want you to play the game anymore, they can take it from you at any time, even if the game doesn't have Denuvo or other third-party DRM. The majority of Steam games have built-in Steam DRM, which is to say that without the Steam client, even if you have the raw files, you cannot run them. And if Steam wants to revoke that game from your library, you will no longer be able to run the program either. While this isn't true for all of the games on Steam, it is for most, and short of testing it yourself by manually trying to run the exe without the Steam client installed, you really have no way of knowing until you buy the game. So just like Ubisoft or EA, Steam can also revoke your access to a game even if you have it already installed and even if you've paid for it. The framework for them to do this is already there with their refund policy. For those of you who don't know, or maybe you've never refunded a game on Steam, let me explain how it works. You apply for a refund. If you've played under 2 hours, Steam will usually accept the request, then the game will be removed from your library, and you get a refund in a few days. Trying to run the game, since it's been removed from your library, will usually, if it has Steam DRM, result in that game being unable to run, even if you have the raw files, because you're not authorized to play it, and basically what happens is the Steam DRM checks with the Steam client and says, wait, this person doesn't have authorization to run this program, not going to let it happen. Now, by itself, I'm not saying that this whole thing is bad. In fact, quite the contrary. I have in the past had a few games that straight up didn't work, and then I ended up returning them, and it worked out great. However, part of the problem with this is the fact that Steam does, in this case, have the technology and ability to take away your ability to play a game even if it's already been downloaded. I understand why, in this case, it's necessary and even useful to the consumer, allowing them to get refunds. However, I'm concerned with how it could be used wrongly, like we see in the case of EA and Ubisoft. After all, the game industry has a history, especially in recent years, with not exactly doing what's best for the players. Now you might be saying, but Broken, Steam will never do that. Lord Gaben has generally been pro-consumer. He's on our side. To that, I think it's important to point out that Lord Gaben won't last forever. Gabe Newell is getting up there in age, and while I certainly wish him good health and I genuinely never want anything bad to happen to the guy, the fact of the matter is, people die. People step down. Management changes hands. And companies like Microsoft are constantly looking to buy out the competition. In just the last several years, they've bought out Activision, Bethesda, Minecraft, and Skype, just to name a few. All massive industry giants now owned by one company that has a record of being incredibly anti-consumer. So I don't think it's too much of a stretch to speculate that Microsoft or some other giant corporation will eventually buy out Steam one way or another. I don't think that Gabe will necessarily sell Steam, but it wouldn't surprise me if his successor does for the right amount of cash. After all, few people foresaw them buying Minecraft, and look at it today. They bought it, somehow turned a game about blocks woke, and monetized the absolute hell out of it. I also should point out that they robbed thousands of people access to the game with their forced account migration a couple of years ago, and they only allowed players a limited time to do it, so if you didn't do it during the window provided, you just lost access to the game that you paid for. Permanently. Now, I've seen some people defend this, saying how account migration took place over the course of 2 years and therefore gave individuals ample time to migrate. This is a stupid argument. Companies should not be able to tell you that you have to maintain your right to use their product or else. Tell me, how many old games do you have sitting on a shelf that you haven't played in 2 years or more that you might like to in the future? How would you feel if those games just stopped working because you hadn't touched them in a while? The fact that people defend this type of thing is beyond me. I personally think many have been pacified and conditioned to just accept this kind of treatment, but I'm not buying it. So we know what the issue is here, but what is the solution? I'm not going to just say don't buy games from Steam and leave it at that, because if I did, PC gaming would become very difficult, and as I said earlier, Origin or the Epic Store isn't much better, actually far worse. So what do I recommend? Before I say what I'm going to say, I want it to be abundantly clear that this is not a sponsored video. I have no relation, backing, or incentive to say what I'm about to say. The solution is GOG, colloquially known as GOG or Good Old Games. GOG as a platform is not perfect, but it's been around for a long time, and the appeal of it is that almost all of its games are completely DRM free. This means no sign-ins for single player, no online activation, no client app or launcher required. Completely DRM free. You can take the games you buy on there, put them on a flash drive, and play them anywhere you want. Your laptop, a friend's computer, a library computer, whatever. There is no DRM. Well, GOG doesn't change any of the EULAs as far as I'm aware. It doesn't make it so that you legally own the games, quote-unquote, but you do effectively own them now, just like you did back in the day. Once you have the files are yours, and there is no way for them to take it away from you. Like Steam and other platforms, they do technically have the ability to remove games from your online library, but if you've downloaded them and backed them up somewhere, they can't touch them. No loss of internet, time spent away from your PC, or weird EULA agreement changes can prevent you from playing your games. There's an optional client you can download called GOG Galaxy, which works basically exactly like Steam. It allows you to buy games, view achievements, download your library, etc., but it is not required to run any of the games. You can actually download them directly from their website. To add to this, let's say you don't have hard drive space to install all of your games fully. GOG has you covered there with something they call offline backup installers, which are essentially condensed versions of the game files you can store away somewhere else on your own devices. This puts the ownership of games back into the hands of players in a world where live service, always online, and subscription-based business models have become the norm. Obviously, with this, there are some limitations. You're not going to find things like Helldivers 2 or Call of Duty on GOG for obvious reasons. However, in recent years especially, GOG has massively expanded the library of games they sell from previously only older, more obscure titles now to having most modern releases. All the Fallout games bar 76 are on GOG. The Witchers 1, 2, and 3 are also on GOG. No Man's Sky, Elder Scrolls, Metro, Stalker, including Stalker 2 will be. The newer Wolfenstein games, it's all there, and not to mention lately for a better price than what Steam is offering. I don't know if this has just been me, but I've noticed the last couple of Steam sales in recent years haven't been nearly as good as they used to be. The amount of games on sale and the percentage off on said games isn't as good a deal as what we used to have in the past. Recently, GOG just concluded their summer sale, which lasted way longer than Steam's summer sale, and I found several games that were actually quite a bit cheaper on GOG. While this isn't always the case, I do think that it's useful to mention because I think a lot of people are being ripped off with Steam selling games they don't actually own at higher prices. Sometimes the prices on GOG can be a bit higher, but generally as of late, they're more often than not on par with or lower than Steam prices. Another great feature of GOG that Steam doesn't have is the ability to disable game updates. So when Bethesda drops an update to fix one bug that breaks a few hundred of your mods, you can just avoid it if you own the game on GOG. All that being said, GOG is not perfect. There are still some benefits to Steam, like easy-to-host multiplayer games, Steam Workshop, among a few smaller things, and GOG, of course, like any other platforms, has its issues and controversies. I've heard quite a bit about CD Projekt Red, the company behind GOG, getting involved with woke consultation groups and the like, but at the end of the day, when almost every major company is doing that, I'd rather buy from the one that actually lets me keep my games. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm not telling you to never use Steam at all, at least not right away. For multiplayer games or games where you really want easy one-click mod support, I say Steam is definitely the way to go. But for anything single player or anything you don't have a problem modding manually, I say GOG over Steam any day of the week. I'm at the point now where I'm so frustrated with companies that if a game I want has a GOG release, I'll buy that over the Steam version, even in some rare cases if it costs a few dollars more. I'm tired of corporations pushing me around and threatening me, telling me I have to migrate accounts or log in to authenticate or whatever. I'm tired of not knowing if my games will be there in 2 or 5 or 10 years. I'm the type of person that likes to play games 20 plus years after they came out, and I want to be able to do that in an easy, convenient, and safe way. I don't want to have to pirate, hack, or install a buttload of anti-DRM patches or workarounds to get an old game to play. I don't have time for that. At the end of the day, I'm moving away from Steam, and I think anybody that cares about protecting the investment they put into games should consider it as well. It's time for gamers to rise up and stop giving money to the companies who don't respect them or their rights to property. I made this video because talking to friends and others online, I realized a lot of people are fed up just like me, but don't know what GOG even is. So hopefully this video reaches a few people out there and will inspire them to go check it out and take back control of their game ownership. Thank you as always for watching. Hit that like button if you enjoyed, and as always, have a great day and stay safe. Goodbye.